I'm excited today to have Amy Kohl on the podcast. Amy was one of my favorite surprises of 2021. I actually met her in 2022. No, actually met her in 2020. And it was right after I had my baby. So it was a very different version of me that Amy met. It was postpartum me. But thankfully, she didn't judge me by that. And we've gotten to be great friends and partner together on several clients that we have. So, Amy, introduce yourself. And I really, my goal today, I feel like what you're doing is really unique in how you're building your business. So I want to talk through that a little bit and explore all the things that you're doing that make AK operations so great. So introduce yourself.
Laura, you're awesome. Well, thanks for having me. This is going to be fun. So I'm Amy Kohl. My company is called Amy Kohl, AK Operations. I hate my name. I joke with Laura all the time. I wish I would have met her before so she could help me come up with a more clever name. But at AK Operations, we serve a vast range of types of clients, but most of the time we fall in like a SaaS startup or founder-led sales organization as fractional sales enablement and lead gen. And we do this at a fractional capacity. So we've reinvented what used to be called like an agency service and just a different kind of partnership. And we solve a really cool business problem, which I know we'll get more into, but it's a lot of fun. And I do it every day with some really badass women that make it.
Let's talk about that. I want to talk about your badass women.
God. Okay.
So specifically, I've gotten the honor and the opportunity to work with several of them. So what you're doing is unique. I will say, and I do want to talk about this in a minute, but I will say I love when I meet people who don't have set boundaries in the way, it has to be like this. Carl Hawk, who we both work with, I interviewed him not too long ago. And, it doesn't bother him that, somebody that works for him also has their own business or works for somebody else. We don't really have a clear definition of, this is how you're supposed to work together as a team, and that's it. You collaborate well. So talk about tell me, first of all, I guess, why you decided to start AK Operations. I'd love to talk through that first, and then we want to talk about your first hire.
Yeah. Okay. So at the time I was working for a company doing lead gen and sales enablement, sales automation for a business. And I knew the code that I was cracking, it was working. And all the leading indicators were very positive and strong that like, hey, this is the way people are going to start selling. The evolution of modernizing sales teams is not going to go away. And I knew that company I was working for had a intention to sell, and I had to have a plan. Like, what was I going to do? So I also had 3 kids in 4.5 years, and it was kind of game time for me. Like, do I want to just go get another job and try to convince another founder or owner that I know what I'm doing, or do I just want to like do it on my own and kind of go rogue a little bit? And it's very much in my personality to take risks. So I said, what the hell? I'm just going to try it. And I left Top Ops on a Monday, bought my domain on Tuesday, had my first 2 clients on Friday, and I just been hauled ass until I was maxed out that first year. So I wanted to find a way to be a mom, but not at the sacrifice of like a super killer skill set that I had. Right. And I really felt like empowered by my professional grind and like the things I was solving, the business problem that I was really good at solving. So I didn't want to choose. So I was like, I'm just going to structure a working mom's life a little differently for myself.
Right. And good for you for doing that, because you built something amazing. So, and now you have other women working for you that are getting to do the same thing, which is
That's
great.
Like, it's literally the coolest part. Like, yes, did I think I, grow up one day and drive sales opportunities for other people? Not really, but I'm super excited about creating the jobs and changing their trajectory as working moms.
Right.
There's like 3 out of the 10 girls right now pregnant. So
awesome.
they'll never have to do that. I remember pumping in a server room. Like,
I was in the closet. Yeah.
They'll never do that.
But I also think it's great that you are building a business that women don't have to think like, oh no, I'm pregnant, now what? Because I almost feel like that is a point in every woman's professional career where they have to decide, not always like career over motherhood, obviously, but it's always a decision of the same career, or what does it look like, or a change of pace. There's
Mhm.
always a compromise. And so
Yeah.
your girls are not having to think, oh, do I do this or that? They know they have the freedom to talk it out with you.
They do. And it's hard for them because they're all dominant women and they're all very strong and they like winning. So I sometimes we as women think like, hey, if I take a step back and only want to serve two clients instead of four, I'm a failure.
It's a
Like
lot. Yeah.
I'm frame breaking them to know that that's
Right.
not the case.
Right.
And I like it. I like that I've created a company and a culture where we can flex for the seasons of their life. Like, talking about that first for full year for me, like I was by myself. It was lonely. I had a brand new baby. I was nursing Dominic still. And I, for real, look back and think, I can't hardly remember some of those key things in his life. And I hate that.
Mhm.
But now I was doing that while I was AK Ops, but I've that like tuition or like that, those hard days
Mhm.
afforded, way better days for other people and for me and Dominic when he's, 14 and I'm not going to miss a single game.
Right.
So I
Right.
just, there's just a thing, and I didn't grow up around a bunch of business moms, like
Yeah.
working moms. Like my
Yeah.
mom wasn't. She was really like secondary to my dad, her career secondary to my dad's.
Right.
And I think her capabilities would have far surpassed his if it was just different then.
Right.
And I don't know, these girls, I'm blown away. They're young, they hustle, they're so smart. And I love them for leaving some of their corporate gigs to come do this with me. And at the time when most of them joined, we didn't even have any like
Right.
maternity
That's
leave
a lot of,
policies or anything.
they put a lot of trust in you, which means, says a lot. I know it means a lot to you.
It a ton. Like they trust me to join this, and I like work really hard every day to make sure I'm keeping their trust. And like at the end of the day, like I'm not the smartest person on the team anymore. Like together, we
Yeah.
are all like a force to be reckoned with for sure.
Yeah.
But it's not my show anymore.
Right. I love that. So talk me through the first year of your business. Talk me through, the highs and the lows, and
Hmm.
specifically for, my hope is that if one entrepreneur listens to this, then mission accomplished. But, specifically would love for one female entrepreneur to listen to this and, get
Hmm.
something out of it. So that first year, trying to navigate, one, supporting a family,
Yeah,
two, building a business that you realize pretty quickly this is legit and turning into something, but then like the timing on when to hire, and
yeah, yeah.
what was your secret sauce to kind of figure all of that out?
So I suffered. We talk about imposter syndrome all the time, but there was a time when I was like, I have to take all this business because one day I'm not going to have it, or and I like self drowned like in work
Yeah.
at the expense of like marriage and family and nights. And I was just telling an employee earlier this morning on one of my one-on-ones, used to open and close Breadco. It's like an all-time low. Like, get out of here, lady. Like, you got to have more important things to do. But to
Yeah.
me, I didn't. I was like, no, I got to prove these people that I could do this. And then when I actually did, like through that, really, and to give myself a little credit, other women were watching me, even though I wasn't thinking I was going to scale yet or hire yet. But I hit rock bottom. I had 8 clients by myself. I was charging like a fourth or fifth of what we charge now,
Yeah. Yeah.
and doing it on my own and struggling. And so it got to a point where I was looking at the interest of people that were coming in, the good work I was putting out, and then the referrals that subsequent good work was earning me, and thought, I'm either going to ruin my own business trying to do it all myself, or I got to take a little bit of leap of faith because I know I'm solving something super cool. I'm doing it in a cool way. I just got to find the right girl or the right person.
Mhm.
And at the time, we were tiny. Like I wanted to be her to be able to come to my home. I wanted to go to her. Like we needed to work together. So a female would make things a lot less awkward so I
Yeah.
started to look for a great girl. And a previous girl I used to work with, she was actually a rep on one of my funnels, or one of my that kind of led the charge on the funnel I was supporting at the time. I like reached out to her. I'm like, hey, listen, I think you could help me even as a 1099. You want to do this? She's like, hell yeah, I'm in. And then I found a woman that was one of my first clients. It's actually Mallory. It's Laura's like original AK point of contact.
Yep.
She, I taught her this really cool skill set as a client of mine. She went and asked for, a raise and didn't get it. So she's like, all right, peace. And she even
Right.
got a director job at another company. And then that's where I came and scooped her
Story.
up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those original like first couple hires were scary because they were also young, starting their families, and like I didn't know if I'd have health insurance. There's all these weird things up in the air,
Right.
and I just decided like, listen, if I'm gonna do this right, they're the most valuable thing to me, and
Yeah.
I love them for joining me. I'm gonna do it right by them, and then that's when I intentionally did things different. It might have been harder for my bottom line or for those really fragile times.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you feel like you had to make some personal sacrifices as far as like in the business, what you paid yourself or whatever? Did you have to do that or just move stuff around? Not really.
I mean, maybe it's all like a blur. I can't remember those, to me, that's like counting nickels back then because it was such an opportunity cost to what was coming.
Right.
So then I probably, as long as I knew I just needed to make $8,000, like if I can just make him $8,000, if I can
Right.
invoice that, we're going to be all right. I can pay
Right.
them and I can still pay my bills. And then it evolved, and like what it's done for their lives now is crazy. That
Right.
fourth hire we brought in was Sarah Bray, who's our current chief client success officer. She came in and just said, hey, listen, Amy, Mallory, Shelby, you guys are like wild cowboys. I need to standardize what we're doing so it's easier to onboard the next person. And she brought process and like the corporate world and formalities that she was exposed to in her career and really helped me slow down and focus on like the growth model, while Mallory and Shelby and Sarah were really focused on.
What a blessing and what good timing. I feel like that fourth
Yeah.
hire, that's a perfect time to really start streamlining.
Yeah,
And I've learned firsthand that processes can help you scale a whole lot faster. I mean, when
totally.
you have processes and we actually onboarded somebody new and we had training all set up for her. And, I
I
mean,
know, it's
always
wild.
have to learn, but like in 2 days, she has videos and, any
Yeah.
resources. It just saves a lot of time on the back end. So,
No, for sure. And it's funny because like finding people is the hardest part. Like I think my job is to always be recruiting or have my eye out for somebody awesome.
yeah,
Those first three girls came from like an arm length from my
right,
my own personal bubble. So it was really nice.
right,
I didn't have any like recruiters or like blind interviews at
right.
all.
So how do you feel like you've kept, because I would say hiring is the hardest thing. And now you have how many girls?
10. There's 10 of us.
And I've met probably half of them at least, or more
Yeah.
than half.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a very obvious similarities in the way that they work and they operate. Like, how do you find 10 girls like that?
Okay, that's a loaded question. I found some of them over martinis. No, I'm joking.
Right.
So the first initial hires, it was really just like, do I think she's got it? I gave them some like critical thinking, like logic tests and challenges or like skills assessments through the interview process. But then it really shifted gears about 8 months ago when I really had to like understand what does it take to make a badass AK Ops woman who can do. I mean, we serve VPs of sales, some of the kindest people, but also some of the toughest
Yeah,
guys with some of the biggest targets on their back.
yeah,
And we're fractional. So if you need to feed someone a shit sandwich, it's gonna be somebody like an
right,
arm length from your own team. And
right.
that's so my team has to be bold and strong and confident in what they're talking about and the data that we're saying and making our recommendations clear. So it's a personality type for sure.
Absolutely.
So what we did is I actually invested in a like kind of a leadership coach to come in and assess my team one-on-one, kind of get a feel for their strengths, their challenges, and like the things that motivate them. We did it through like actually a cool standard DISC assessment, but it actually gave me a really good lay of the land of like where everybody falls And so now when I'm looking at my pipeline, I'm like, this is an insanely good Shelby client, or this is perfect for Krista.
Right.
And I match that way, but then I also create teams and pods, and like create a team lead with a girl that's very different from her will help maybe one of our girls that is very like strategically oriented, but doesn't necessarily push the pedal to the metal like say Mallory does.
Right.
Those two together are a grand slam.
Right. Absolutely.
So
right.
I had to learn like what it took to do the job.
Yeah. Knowing the personalities rather than just the skill,
Yeah.
the skill set too, the combo of the two.
And I'll be honest, like I'm a strong personality. I'm a high D. I'm very dominant. And I was like steamrolling some of the different personalities on my team, and I was losing like connection with some of them and their trust. And like I was no longer, they weren't seeing me as a resource anymore. And I had to learn, I can't talk to everybody the way I talk to Sarah and Mallory. I got to talk to people differently and encourage them and motivate them differently, or help them get through some of their blind spots better. So I honestly, it was a very like self-revelation for me in the last 6 months for sure.
Yeah, that's hard. So, yes, talk a little bit about like, okay, well, what does you know when it's time? This is where I am right now. I just hired technically my third full-time hire. But also like, I mean, I know I'm not a math person. I know you're married to a number guy, so that's lucky for you.
Yeah.
But there is, I mean, I think the scariest thing is to hire your first person. Also scary to hire your second person. Then you kind of get the confidence and you know what it takes. But what's your formula? You're always recruiting. You're always looking for the next hire. But how do you know when it's time to pull the trigger? Because it sounds like you have a pretty old machine in that.
Kind of my answer may not be the right one for everybody, but this is the perfect storm I look for. Are we serving our clients the right way with the current business we already have? Is there opportunity to do more within the business we already have? Because then I can upsell the business for my current team.
Right.
Also, if I have a lot of at-risk clients, it's not a good time to hire because I need to make sure I have pipeline to fill gaps for my existing team. So I go through that process all the time first, like analyze current client performance and current team performance and coverage. That's always good, which our principle is good work for good people. It's typically always a green checkbox. That's always typically good. Thank God. Second is I take a look at my at the pipeline of my own pipeline and the referrals. So if I ever need to fill a gap, and I haven't necessarily needed to do this, but the early days I did, I'd go and say, hey, Michael, we've done this for you. We've generated 4x the pipeline and help close the gap with your win rate. So now you're closing every third deal instead of every fifth or sixth. You have to have other buddies that have the same problem. Can you make an introduction for me? And 9 times out of 10, I'd win that. Because their buddies saw it work.
Right.
They usually keep a similar circle, and then I pull those deals in. But the formula for me is checking on my current team, my current clients, taking a look at my pipeline, and then also like looking outward at like the season of life of my team. For me, a lot of maternity leaves are coming up. Right. This isn't a hyper growth year for me because of that. I think that's totally good. And after
accepted that. Yeah. That's great. Yeah.
But after the like roller coaster first 3 years, I'm good with that.
Like breathe from it. Yeah.
Yeah. And here's the other thing too.
Like in months, like December was huge. So I'm like, January, we can just chill for a minute, very similarly, it's not year to year, but month to month in that way.
Well, and we're in a good spot because you are too. Like, we don't have to strike when the iron's hot. Like, this is always going to be a thing. Sales reps are always going to be running in different directions, or there'll be a very rogue sales process, or a company that's been doing 30 million every year needs to now do 50 or 60 in the next 24 months. They have to modernize or reinvent how they're going to market.
Kind of head count.
That's not going anywhere. So I got, it's okay to accept that as, the hungry Amy Kohl from even 18 months ago. I've been like, no, fuck that.
Right.
We're just gonna go balls to the walls. But I don't have to do that anymore. I'm not really proving anything to anybody. And I feel that feels good. My imposter
Well,
syndrome is
you just
gone.
started this conversation saying the first year I was proving everything to everybody, is what you felt like
Yeah.
you could do.
I
And
mean,
like,
even my own husband, like my family members, my friends, they're like, "What do you mean you're just going to do your own thing? What does that mean? You just had your
right,
third baby, or yet?" And but now my first month on the job, one of my mentors said, "Stop worrying about the money and just focus on the work." And I did, and only focused on the work, doing it good,
mm-hmm.
and doing what I said I'd do, being honest when things were going south, because at the end of the day, I was their partner. I wasn't like, we were in it to win it together.
Right.
That those disciplines early on paid off tenfold down the road.
Yeah.
Because now I don't have that imposter syndrome anymore, because what we do really does work.
Right. Okay, I didn't prep you for this, but tell me about, we talk about client breakups all the time. So thankfully
Oh,
I haven't yet had a client leave me on their behalf. I know it's coming. I'm sure it is. I know that you're not always aligned, but I have had to break up with a few. So I want to
mhm.
hear, maybe you don't have to talk about breakups, but if you have some like maybe a high and a low, or you want to talk about the lows, like what are some things that I'm thinking, that another entrepreneur could learn from, as far as like, lows are going to happen. Here's
Yeah.
how we can deal with them.
So we identify, there's three questions we ask ourselves here. And they had them when we had a hard month with some legacy clients struggling to convert, and deals I took early on that really aren't our ideal customer profile today. Like, we've had a lot of concepts or conversations around that. We really assess it with three things. Are they good partners? Do they respect and receive what we recommend well? And do we collaborate in an effective way? Like, are they blowing us up and are using aggressive language, or are they like really collaborative, and solution oriented whenever we do find problems? One. Two is it working? When we are aligned, are our conversion metrics working? So you know this, but we're very, very number centric. So are we booking the meetings we committed to? Is our pipeline generating, and are we winning deals? If
Yeah.
any of that's a no, then we
Right.
need this. There might be product market fit problems. There might be trust problems. But we're not driving enough of the creation of the campaigns, whatever it is. But second one is it working? And then the third one is, does the time and like the mental capacity worth the retainer?
Right.
Or
Right.
for us, it would be the retainer. And that
Right.
one's hard. That one's a hard one to answer often, and it usually includes a pretty good discussion.
Right.
But if two or more of those are
Or
not,
not a
it's
yes. Yeah. I think, one thing I've learned too is it's hard sometimes to put, somebody actually asked me what my hourly rate was. And I was like,
mhm,
I've never quoted anybody in an hourly rate. I just don't, because there's so many hands in the work, like
right,
in
right.
a good way, they're supported by more than just so I had trouble answering that question. But I
hmm
also think like being able to identify, that third question of like, what is it costing us? Like,
hmm
figuring out a way to identify that in a somewhat of a formulaic way is really important, because I can feel, and I know you probably this way too. I can feel when somebody's costing.
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
physically feel like they're a burden. They're a burden on your team.
yeah.
And sometimes the cost is that, like, are they not respecting us? Because that's a true like morale, challenge internally.
It's a mental burn.
Yeah.
And if I let one of if my teammates manage four clients each woman has four clients. If one of their four clients is awful, those other three clients are gonna feel little of that.
They suffer. Yeah. Yeah.
She's spending a fourth of her week with somebody that's not
Yeah.
feeding her, or like embracing her creativity and energy that she's bringing to the table for whatever reason.
Right.
So yeah, like, is the time it takes to care for this client worth, does dollars make sense, but also does like the mental strain and capacity it takes to solve these problems with them work? And if those
Right.
don't align, that's usually a time when I then have really awkward conversations with them.
Right. That's good.
Sometimes they're awkward, sometimes they're not, but my teammates never do that.
Right. Yeah.
That's my job for
I was
sure.
going to say, it sounds like you've successfully you've been doing this 3 years, 4 years, 3 years.
3.5.
Like in the 3 year time span, that's encouraging to see because, I still spend even just a few months in,
Mhm.
a lot of time head down,
Yeah.
and you're at a place where you kind I mean, you're still in the work when you have to be, but for the
Yeah.
most part, heads up supporting your team, which is what you should be doing. So,
Yeah, I'm trying,
yeah.
and there's weeks where I'm way more like this week. I was like, trying to build a Zoom info list with one of our new hires. I'm like, I don't know that I'm the best person to do this.
But sometimes you just gotta
Yeah, yeah,
to get stuff done. Well, tell me what's next for you. I want to keep this relatively short. Maybe we do a part two later down. But tell me what's next
uh-huh.
for AK Operations. What you're excited about? What you're most
Yeah,
excited about? What really is getting you going these days?
yeah. So success from my team is when we all meet that perfect balance. Like the word for us for 2022 is balance. Being able to shut off that grind mentality that we had to have for the first 3 years and shift it into more of a like a healthy balance. I never want my team's green lights on at night if we don't need to, or
Right.
like the weekend work's no longer a thing. When we hit vacation mode, when we're on vacation, and like that's a success metric for me this year,
Yeah.
and for everybody, even the newest girls, they deserve that too. And
Right.
when I look ahead for AK Ops, I'm looking at going deeper in the customers automation challenge. So right now we build top of funnel, we generate pipeline, we help close more customers. But then there's all these upsells opportunities for us to go deeper. And now let's automate how we onboard our customers, nurture them, and make sure they stay, and build the lifetime value of the customers we're generating. So I'm looking at more of customer success type growth and potential.
Yeah.
The other biggest thing is I want to be able to help clients that can't necessarily afford yet my team, because we start every contract with 4 months, and then every time it flips to a month contract. Um, but so it's a commitment up front. So I want to start thinking about doing like some city workshops where me
Oh,
and some of the seniors on my team go to incubators, and like we just have a crash course workshop
that's
session.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, or be able to build like a light version
Yeah.
where you
Video
may not,
videos, maybe some video.
yeah,
Yeah.
where you're not necessarily or we're not necessarily responsible for the metrics, but I might have one girl dedicated to just like quickly setting up pipelines and teaching.
I love
So I'm
that.
kind of trying to find new ways
I
to get
love that.
outside of just the normal services that we're serving right now.
Well, and that's when I mean, to me, I've always been a share first. Like I've never like
Yeah.
cared
So
about proprietary anything. Like, you know what, if what I do can help more people by telling them about it, then let me tell them about it. So
totally agree.
it's a great way to share the wealth of what you're doing without you know
Laura, you'll love this, and I know you probably have this too. But the people that I help just to help, like the first 3 years or so, I have always gotten some of our best customers out of a referral or just name drop that person also shared with me. So
yeah,
like serving first before it makes it to where you don't have to sell anymore.
right,
It's really
right,
just so consultative and easy.
right. And it's
But again, it's because of that discipline.
exciting to see your business growing without you having to do a whole lot of those calls about referrals. You said you can call somebody and say you
Yeah.
have a referral, but I mean, you're probably not doing that very often.
No,
You're doing
no.
want to, not necessarily because you have to. So
Yeah, thank God though. I knock on wood, I never wanted to change, but yeah, it's been such a fun ride.
So if somebody wants to learn about what you guys are doing, where would they look? I know where, but you tell
I was gonna say I got a really sharp crew running all my social media these days. So you can find us on LinkedIn, it's AK Operations, or our website, amycooperations.com, which was also done by Laura and her team.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you being on.
Oh, you bet. I love you, Laura. Thank you.